Babe, I've been thinking about going back to school once Mila starts kindergarten. I couldn't contain my excitement as I shared my dream with Ethan over dinner. His fork paused midway to his mouth, and he raised an eyebrow. Really? And who's going to take care of Mila and the house while you're off playing student? His condescending tone cut through me like a knife. I thought we could work together to make it happen. You know how much this means to me. I tried to keep my voice steady, but the disappointment was palpable. Ethan scoffed. Come on, Zara. You're a wife and mother now. It's time to grow up and focus on your real responsibilities. He resumed eating, dismissing my aspirations with a wave of his hand. Anger bubbled up inside me. Real responsibilities? Like supporting my husband's career while putting my own dreams on hold? I pushed my plate away, appetite vanishing. Ethan's eyes narrowed. I provide for this family. The least you can do is be grateful and take care of things at home. Grateful? I laughed bitterly. For what? For being treated like a servant in my own home? Mila, sensing the tension, whimpered softly. I reached over to soothe her, but Ethan's voice stopped me cold. Don't coddle her. She needs to learn that life isn't always fair. I stared at him in disbelief. She's 4, Ethan. She needs love and support, not life lessons from a man who can't even appreciate his own wife. Ethan slammed his fist on the table, causing Mila to jump. Watch your mouth, Zara. You're treading on thin ice. I stood up abruptly, scooping Mila into my arms. I'm done with this conversation, and I'm done letting you control my life. I stormed out of the room, fighting back tears as Mila clung to me. Over the next few weeks, the tension in our home was palpable. Ethan's work trips became more frequent, leaving me alone to care for Mila and manage the household. I poured my frustrations into researching master's programs, determined to pursue my education despite Ethan's objections. One afternoon, while organizing Ethan's home office, I stumbled upon a hidden folder tucked away in his desk drawer. My hands trembled as I flipped it open, revealing divorce papers and intimate photos of Ethan with a younger woman. The world around me spun as the realization of his betrayal sank in. Rage consumed me, burning away the last shreds of love and respect I had for my husband. How could he do this to me, to our family? I clutched the evidence to my chest, tears streaming down my face. In that moment, I made a vow to myself. I would expose Ethan's true colors and make him pay for his deceit. As I sat on the floor of his office, surrounded by the remnants of our shattered marriage, a fierce determination took hold of me. I would no longer be the naive, submissive wife. It was time to take control of my life and secure a better future for Mila and myself, even if it meant destroying the man I once loved. With trembling hands, I tucked the incriminating evidence back into the folder, my mind reeling from the discovery of Ethan's betrayal. I knew I had to act quickly, but I needed more information. I couldn't confront him without a solid plan in place. I called my best friend Lila and poured out my heart to her. She listened patiently, her voice filled with a mix of anger and concern. Zara, you need to protect yourself and Mila. You can't let him get away with this. I know, I sighed, but I don't even know where to start. I feel so lost. Lila's voice turned determined. I have a friend who's a private investigator. He's discreet and thorough. I'll set up a meeting for you. 2 days later, I found myself sitting across from Jack, a seasoned PI with a no-nonsense demeanor. I handed him the folder, my voice shaking as I explained my situation. He leafed through the contents, his expression grim. I'll dig into this Jade character and see what I can find. In the meantime, I suggest you start gathering more evidence. The more ammunition you have, the better. I nodded, a plan forming in my mind. I have an idea. I'll need your help to execute it. That evening, while Ethan was on another work trip, I carefully planted a hidden camera in his office. It was a risk, but I needed concrete proof of his affair and any other illegal activities. Days turned into weeks as I waited for Jack's report, the camera silently recording Ethan's every move. When Jack finally called, his voice was filled with a mixture of disgust and satisfaction. Zara, I've got what you need. Ethan's been embezzling company funds to finance his little getaways with Jade, and I've got video evidence of them in his office, discussing their plans to run away together. My heart raced as I processed the information. Send me everything you have. It's time to confront him. Ethan returned home that evening, his demeanor cold and distant. I waited until Mila was asleep before I approached him in his office. He looked up from his laptop. Annoyance etched on his face. "What do you want, Zara?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation. "I know about Jade, Ethan, and I know about the money you've been stealing from your company." His eyes widened, then narrowed in anger. "You've been spying on me? How dare you?" I held up my phone, the video of him and Jade playing silently on the screen. "I have all the evidence I need. Did you really think you could get away with this?" Ethan's face contorted with rage. He stood up abruptly, his chair crashing to the floor. "You stupid bitch! You have no idea what you're messing with!" He lunged at me, his hands reaching for my throat. I stumbled backward, my back slamming against the wall. Mila, awakened by the commotion, appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide with fear. "Mommy?" Ethan froze, his grip loosening. I pushed him away, gasping for air. Mila ran to me, tears streaming down her face. "I hate you, Daddy!" "You hurt Mommy." Ethan stared at us, his expression a mix of shock and shame. Without a word, he turned and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I held Mila close, my own tears falling freely. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. I won't let him hurt us anymore." As I comforted my daughter, a fierce determination filled my heart. Ethan had shown his true colors, and now it was time to make him pay for his sins. I would use every piece of evidence I had to destroy him, just as he had destroyed our family. In the days following the confrontation, Ethan became increasingly distant and cold towards Mila and me. He spent long hours locked away in his office, only emerging for brief, tense meals. I knew he was planning his next move, and I had to stay one step ahead. I met with Lila at a quiet cafe, the weight of my secret hanging heavy between us. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand in support. "How are you holding up, Zara?" I shook my head, exhaustion etched on my face. "I'm barely keeping it together, Lila. I feel like I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for Ethan to strike." Lila's eyes narrowed. "You need to keep gathering evidence. The more you have, the stronger your case will be." I nodded, pulling out my phone. "I've been recording his phone conversations with Jade. Listen to this." I pressed play, and Jade's voice filled the air, dripping with disdain. "When are you going to leave that pathetic excuse for a wife, Ethan? We could be so happy together, without her dragging us down." Ethan's reply was muffled, but the intent was clear. "Soon, baby. I just need to make sure she doesn't get a penny in the divorce. She doesn't deserve anything." Lila's face contorted with disgust. "What a snake. You need to take him down, Zara. Hard." I tucked my phone away, a plan forming in my mind. "I know exactly what I'm going to do, but I need you to promise me something, Lila." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Anything. If something happens to me, I need you to take care of Mila. Make sure she knows how much I love her." Lila's eyes widened. "Zara, don't talk like that. Nothing's going to happen to you." I smiled sadly. "I hope you're right, but I have to be prepared for anything." Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into my revenge plan. I compiled a dossier of evidence against Ethan, from the hidden camera footage to the recordings of his conversations with Jade. I met with a lawyer who assured me that I had a strong case for full custody of Mila and a generous settlement. But I knew Ethan wouldn't go down without a fight. He started staying out late, coming home reeking of alcohol and perfume. He barely acknowledged Mila's presence, brushing past her as if she were a ghost. One night I confronted him as he stumbled through the door, his eyes bloodshot and his shirt askew. "Where have you been, Ethan?" He sneered at me, his words slurring together. "None of your damn business, Zara. I don't answer to you." I stepped closer, my voice low and dangerous. "You answer to your daughter, though. Or have you forgotten about her?" Ethan's face twisted with rage. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my skin. "Don't you dare use Mila against me. You're the one who's tearing this family apart with your ridiculous fantasies of going back to school." I wrenched my arm away, my eyes blazing. "No, Ethan. You're the one who tore this family apart the moment you decided to cheat on me with your assistant." He stared at me, his mouth agape. "How did you?" I smiled coldly. "I know everything, Ethan, and soon everyone else will too." I turned to walk away, but Ethan's voice stopped me. "You'll regret this, Zara. I'll make sure you never see Mila again." I looked back over my shoulder, my voice steady. "You can try, Ethan, but I've got the truth on my side, and the truth always comes out in the end." As I walked away, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but I was ready to fight for my daughter and my future. Ethan had underestimated me for the last time. The tension in our home had reached a boiling point. Ethan's anger simmered just beneath the surface, ready to explode at the slightest provocation. I walked on eggshells, trying to shield Mila from the worst of it, but I knew it was only a matter of time before everything came to a head. It happened on a rainy Tuesday evening. Ethan had been gone for days, claiming he was on a business trip. But I knew better. I had seen the charges on our credit card statement: expensive dinners, luxury hotels, and even a pair of diamond earrings that certainly weren't meant for me. When he finally walked through the door, I was waiting for him in the living room, Mila playing quietly at my feet. He barely glanced at us as he shrugged off his coat and tossed his keys on the table. "We need to talk, Ethan," I said, my voice steady despite the fear churning in my gut. He looked at me then, his eyes cold and hard. "I don't have time for your nagging, Zara. I've had a long day." I stood up, my hands clenched at my sides. "I'm sure you have. Busy spending our money on your mistress, were you?" Ethan's face twisted with rage. He took a step towards me, his voice low and menacing. "You don't know what you're talking about, Zara. I suggest you drop it." But I couldn't drop it. Not anymore. "I know everything, Ethan. The affair, the embezzlement, all of it. Did you really think you could keep it hidden forever?" He lunged at me then, his hands wrapping around my throat. I gasped for air, my eyes wide with terror. Mila screamed, her little voice piercing the air. "Daddy, stop! You're hurting Mommy." Ethan froze, his grip loosening. He stared at Mila, his face a mask of shock and shame. I pushed him away, coughing and sputtering as I tried to catch my breath. Mila ran to me, her arms wrapping around my legs. "I hate you, Daddy," she sobbed, her face buried in my skirt. "You're a bad man." Ethan stared at us, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Finally, he turned and stumbled out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I sank to the floor, gathering Mila in my arms. We cried together, our tears mingling on my shirt. I stroked her hair, whispering soothing words in her ear. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. I won't let him hurt us anymore." But even as I said the words, I knew they were a lie. Ethan had shown his true colors, and there was no going back. I had to get Mila and myself out of this toxic situation before it was too late. The next few days were a blur of activity. I met with my lawyer, who helped me file for a restraining order against Ethan. I packed our bags, taking only the essentials. Mila clung to me, her eyes wide and fearful. "Where are we going, Mommy?" she asked, her voice small and uncertain. I kissed her forehead, trying to project a sense of calm I didn't feel. "We're going on a little adventure, baby. Just you and me. Won't that be fun?" She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She was too young to understand the gravity of the situation, but she knew something was wrong. As we drove away from the only home Mila had ever known, I felt a sense of both relief and dread. I knew I was doing the right thing, but I also knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. Ethan wouldn't let us go without a fight, and I had to be prepared for anything. But I also knew that I had the truth on my side, and the truth, as painful as it might be, would set us free in the end. Mila and I settled into our new life at the secret rental home, but the peace was short-lived. Ethan's behavior grew increasingly erratic, his anger and desperation palpable even from a distance. He bombarded me with phone calls and texts, alternating between pleading for forgiveness and hurling vicious insults. I did my best to shield Mila from the worst of it, but she could sense the tension in the air. She clung to me like a lifeline, her little face etched with worry. "When can we go home, Mommy?" she asked, her voice small and uncertain. I hugged her close, my heart breaking at the thought of all she had endured. "This is our home now, baby. We're going to make a fresh start, just you and me." But even as I said the words, I knew that Ethan wouldn't let us go that easily. He was a man used to getting what he wanted, and he viewed Mila and me as his possessions, to be controlled and manipulated at will. I threw myself into gathering evidence against him, determined to build an airtight case. I spent long hours poring over financial records and phone logs, piecing together the puzzle of his deceit. Late one night, as Mila slept peacefully in her bed, I stumbled upon a goldmine of information. Ethan had been sloppy, leaving a trail of incriminating emails and text messages between himself and Jade. They spoke openly of their plans to flee the country together, using the embezzled funds to start a new life. My blood boiled as I read Jade's words, dripping with contempt for me and Mila. "I can't wait to be rid of that pathetic excuse for a wife," she wrote. "And as for the kid, we can always ship her off to boarding school. Out of sight, out of mind." I printed out the messages with shaking hands, my vision blurring with tears of rage. How could Ethan be so callous, so willing to abandon his own child? And Jade, what kind of woman could be so heartless, so eager to destroy a family for her own selfish gain? I added the printouts to my growing dossier of evidence, a sense of grim satisfaction filling me. Ethan thought he was untouchable, but he had no idea what I was capable of. I would make him pay for his sins, even if it meant burning down the life we had built together. The next day, I met with Jack, the private investigator who had been working tirelessly on my behalf. He greeted me with a smile, his eyes twinkling with anticipation. "I think we've got him, Zara," he said, handing me a thick folder. "This should be more than enough to nail the bastard to the wall." I flipped through the pages, my heart racing as I took in the damning evidence. Bank statements, surveillance photos, witness statements, it was all there, laid out in black and white. Ethan's carefully constructed facade was crumbling, and I held the sledgehammer that would bring it all crashing down. I looked up at Jack, my eyes shining with determination. "It's time," I said, my voice steady and strong. "Let's take this son of a bitch down." Jack nodded, his face serious. "I'll start making the necessary arrangements. You just focus on keeping yourself and Mila safe. This is going to get ugly before it gets better." I knew he was right. Ethan wouldn't go down without a fight, and I had to be prepared for anything. But I also knew that I had the truth on my side, and the love of my daughter to keep me strong. As I left Jack's office, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Ethan had underestimated me for the last time, and now he would pay the price for his betrayal. The day had finally arrived. Ethan was set to leave for another one of his work trips, but this time I knew exactly where he was going. He and Jade had planned a romantic getaway, a chance to flaunt their illicit love in the face of everything Ethan had once held dear. I watched from the window as he loaded his suitcase into the trunk of his car, whistling a jaunty tune. He had no idea what was about to hit him, no inkling of the storm that was brewing on the horizon. As soon as he pulled out of the driveway, I sprang into action. Mila and I had been living out of suitcases for weeks, our belongings carefully packed and hidden away. Now it was time to put our plan into motion. We loaded our bags into my car, Mila chattering excitedly about our adventure. She had no idea the gravity of the situation, no understanding of the betrayal that had led us to this moment. All she knew was that we were going somewhere new, somewhere far away from the pain and heartache of the past few months. As we drove away from the house that had once been our home, I felt a sense of both sadness and relief. I was leaving behind everything I had ever known, but I was also breaking free from the chains that had held me down for so long. We arrived at our secret rental home just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Mila ran inside, eager to explore our new surroundings. I followed more slowly, my heart heavy with the weight of what was to come. I unpacked our belongings with a sense of finality, knowing that there was no turning back now. I placed the divorce papers and the evidence of Ethan's crimes on the kitchen table, a silent testament to the truth that had been hidden for so long. And then I waited. I knew it wouldn't be long before Ethan discovered our absence, before he realized that his carefully constructed world was crumbling around him. The phone rang just as I was putting Mila to bed, her little face peaceful in the soft glow of the nightlight. I answered it with a sense of calm, my voice steady and strong. "Zara, where the hell are you?" Ethan's voice was frantic, tinged with anger and fear. "I came home and everything was gone. What have you done?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "I've done what I had to do, Ethan. I've taken Mila and left. I know everything. The affair, the embezzlement, all of it. Did you really think you could keep it hidden forever?" There was a long pause, and then Ethan's voice came back, low and menacing. You have no idea what you've done, Zara. I'll find you, and I'll make you pay for this. You and Mila belong to me, and I won't let you go without a fight. I laughed then, a harsh, bitter sound. You're wrong, Ethan. Mila and I don't belong to anyone, least of all you. You've lost everything, and it's all your own doing. The divorce papers are waiting for you, along with all the evidence of your crimes. It's over, Ethan. You've lost. I hung up the phone before he could respond, my hands shaking with adrenaline. I knew that the battle was far from over, that Ethan would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. But I also knew that I had the truth on my side, and the love of my daughter to keep me strong. I checked on Mila one last time before heading to bed myself, my mind whirling with the events of the day. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new obstacles to overcome. But for now, I could rest easy, knowing that I had taken the first step towards a brighter future, a future free from the lies and betrayal of the past. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the turmoil that had engulfed my life. I woke early, my mind racing with the tasks that lay ahead. I had one more piece of the puzzle to put in place before I could truly break free from Ethan's grasp. I dressed quickly, leaving Mila in the care of my trusted friend and neighbor. She had been a lifeline throughout this ordeal, offering support and guidance when I needed it most. I knew that Mila would be safe with her, protected from the storm that was about to break. I drove to Ethan's parents' house with a sense of trepidation, my heart pounding in my chest. I had never been close with his family, but I knew that they needed to know the truth about their son. They deserved to know the man he had become, the monster that lurked beneath the surface. I rang the doorbell with shaking hands, my breath catching in my throat as Ethan's mother answered the door. She looked at me with surprise, her eyes widening as she took in my haggard appearance. "Zara, what are you doing here? Is everything all right?" I shook my head, my voice trembling as I spoke. "No, everything is not all right. I need to talk to you and your husband. It's about Ethan." She ushered me inside, her face etched with concern. Ethan's father was sitting in the living room, reading the newspaper. He looked up as I entered, his brow furrowing in confusion. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. And then I began to speak. I told them everything, the affair, the embezzlement, the abuse. I showed them the evidence I had gathered, the proof of their son's betrayal. They listened in stunned silence, their faces growing paler with each passing moment. When I finished, Ethan's mother was openly weeping, her shoulders shaking with the force of her sobs. "I'm so sorry, Zara," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "We had no idea. We thought he was happy with you and Mila. We never imagined he could do something like this." Ethan's father stood up, his face hard with anger. "He's no son of mine," he said, his voice cold and unforgiving. "What he's done is unforgivable. We'll stand by you, Zara. Whatever you need, we'll be there for you and Mila." I felt a rush of relief wash over me, a sense of vindication that I had never known before. I had been so afraid that they would take Ethan's side, that they would blame me for the breakdown of our marriage. But they had seen the truth, and they had chosen to stand with me. I thanked them, my voice shaking with gratitude. And then I left, my heart lighter than it had been in months. When I returned home, I found Mila playing happily in the living room, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded around her. I scooped her up in my arms, holding her close as I breathed in the sweet scent of her hair. "Mommy, where did you go?" she asked, her little face scrunched up in confusion. "I had to take care of some grown-up things, baby," I said, my voice soft and soothing. "But everything is going to be okay now, I promise." Just then the phone rang, shattering the peaceful moment. I answered it with a sense of dread, knowing exactly who it would be. "Zara, what the hell have you done?" Ethan's voice was raw with anger, tinged with a hint of desperation. "My parents just called me, telling me that they're cutting me off, that they're taking your side in all of this. What did you say to them?" I felt a sense of calm wash over me, a sense of power that I had never known before. "I told them the truth, Ethan, the truth about who you really are, the truth about what you've done. And now they know." "Everyone knows. It's over, Ethan. You've lost." The divorce proceedings were a blur of paperwork and legal jargon, but through it all, I held my head high. I had the truth on my side and the support of those who mattered most. Ethan's parents were true to their word, standing by me and Mila every step of the way. Ethan, on the other hand, was a shell of his former self. He had lost everything: his job, his reputation, his family. Jade had abandoned him as soon as the scandal broke, leaving him to face the consequences of his actions alone. I watched from across the courtroom as he sat slumped in his chair, his face gaunt and haunted. A part of me felt a flicker of pity for him, a remnant of the love I had once felt. But then I remembered all the pain he had caused, all the lies he had told, and my heart hardened once more. The judge's ruling was swift and decisive. I was granted full custody of Mila, along with a generous settlement that would ensure our financial stability for years to come. Ethan was left with nothing, his once promising future reduced to ashes. As I walked out of the courthouse, Mila's hand clasped tightly in mine. I felt a sense of relief wash over me. It was finally over. I was free. The months that followed were a time of healing and growth. I threw myself into my studies, determined to build a better life for myself and my daughter. Mila thrived in her new school, making friends and discovering new passions. I watched her blossom before my eyes, marveling at the resilience and strength that she possessed. She was a fighter, just like her mother. But even as we moved forward, the specter of Ethan lingered in the background. He had taken to drinking heavily, drowning his sorrows in a bottle. His once charming face was now bloated and ruddy, his eyes bloodshot and vacant. One day he showed up at our door reeking of alcohol and desperation. "Please, Zara," he slurred, his words barely intelligible. "I need to see Mila. I need to make things right." I stared at him coldly, my heart a block of ice in my chest. "You lost the right to see Mila the moment you chose Jade over your family, the moment you decided to lie and cheat and steal. You're not the man I married, Ethan. You're not the father Mila deserves." He recoiled as if slapped, his eyes filling with tears. "I know I messed up, Zara. I know I hurt you and Mila, but please, give me another chance. I can change, I swear." I shook my head, my voice firm and unyielding. "It's too late for that, Ethan. You had your chance and you blew it. Mila and I are better off without you. Now I suggest you leave before I call the police." He stared at me for a long moment, his face a mask of anguish and regret. And then he turned and stumbled away. His shoulders slumped in defeat. I watched him go, feeling a sense of closure wash over me. I had loved him once with all my heart, but that love had been tainted by his lies and betrayal, poisoned by his selfish actions. Now I was free to love myself and my daughter, to build a life that was filled with joy and purpose. I had emerged from the darkness stronger and wiser, a phoenix rising from the ashes of my broken marriage. As I closed the door and turned back to Mila, I felt a sense of hope and possibility fill my heart. The future was bright, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. "Come on, baby," I said, scooping her up in a tight hug. "Let's go have some fun." And together we stepped out into the sunlight, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. We were survivors, Mila and I, and nothing could break us as long as we had each other. The piercing scream ripped through my chest before I could stop it. There they were, tangled together like poisonous vines, my husband and my stepmother, locked in a sordid embrace on the kitchen counter. My eyes stung with unshed tears as Alex scrambled off Lana, his limp excuse for a shirt hanging open. "Bryn, this isn't—" He couldn't even finish his thought. Lana simply smirked, not an ounce of shame etched on her face as she smoothed her rumpled silk robe. "Hello, dear. Didn't expect you home so soon, did you?" Her saccharine tone sliced through me like shards of glass. You vile snake!" I hurled the words at her, chest heaving. "How could you, both of you?" Alex opened his mouth again, but I cut him off with a hand slicing through the air. "Save it. I don't want to hear another word from you." Pivoting on my heel, I stormed out of that wretched kitchen, slamming the front door behind me with enough force to rattle the windows. Hot tears streamed down my cheeks as I climbed into my car and peeled out of the driveway, desperate to put distance between me and that nightmare. I must have driven aimlessly for hours, the weight of their betrayal crushing my very soul. Lana, the woman who had stepped into my life as a stepmother when I was just 16, carrying on an affair with my own husband behind my back. And Alex, the one person I'd thought I could trust without question. How could I have been so blind? When I finally returned home well past midnight, the house was blissfully empty. I made a beeline for the den, scooping up the mail and papers scattered across the desk. That's when a plain white envelope caught my eye, addressed to me in my father's familiar scrawl. With trembling hands, I tore it open. Several pages fell out, covered in Dad's tight penmanship. My eyes immediately landed on the top line. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it." Dad's words jumped off the page, each line a punch to the gut. "I'm sorry I couldn't share this with you in person, but I've long had my suspicions about Lana. That woman is rotten to the core, manipulative and hell-bent on sinking her claws into our family's wealth by any means necessary." I sucked in a sharp breath, the pieces slowly falling into place. Dad had tried to warn me, but I'd been too blind to see Lana's true nature. Too consumed by the relief of having a mother figure after Mom's passing to look past the sugary facade. A noise from the hallway made me stiffen. Through the open doorway, I saw Lana saunter by in her silk robe, not a care in the world, like she hadn't just decimated my life mere hours ago. "You lying snake!" The biting words burst from my lips before I could stop them. Lana whirled around, eyes widening in mock innocence. "Why, Bryn, whatever is the matter?" "Don't play dumb with me." I shook the letter at her. "Dad knew all about your twisted games. He tried to stop you from worming your way into this family's life." A flicker of anger flashed across her face before the syrupy mask slid back into place. "Your father was a paranoid old fool obsessed with fending off delusions. I pitied him, really." White-hot rage lanced through me, and I moved towards her, fists clenched, ready to unleash years of pent-up fury. But she only laughed, taking a step back with a shake of her head. "I'd think twice about that if I were you, dear. Your father's ramblings won't hold up in court against the truth." With that parting shot, she turned and slinked away, leaving me seething in her wake. Gripping the letter, I stalked into the living room and grabbed my cell phone, scrolling to find the number Dad had left. Mara Lewis, his attorney. The phone rang twice before a crisp voice answered. "Mara Lewis. Miss Lewis, it's Bryn Ellis. I need to meet with you as soon as possible regarding my father's estate." There was a pause. "Of course. I've been expecting your call. Shall we say 3 p.m. this afternoon at my office?" "I'll be there," I replied through gritted teeth. If Lana thought she could slither her way out of this, she was sorely mistaken. Dad had left me the key to exposing her twisted lies, and I wasn't about to let his final wishes go unanswered. She was going to pay for destroying my family, no matter what it took. By the time I ended the call, my path forward was clear. If Lana wanted truth and consequences, I would make damn sure that's exactly what she got. I stalked into Mara's office precisely at 3 p.m., my heels striking the marble floor with purpose. The impeccably dressed attorney rose from behind her desk, expression impassive. "Miss Ellis, thank you for coming in on such short notice." She waved a hand towards the plush leather chairs facing her desk. "Please, have a seat." I sank into one of the chairs, back ramrod straight as I met her cool gaze. "I want to know everything. What evidence my father had against Lana, and what legal avenues are available to me." Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Very well." She reached into her desk drawer and retrieved a thick manila envelope. "These are the files your father left pertaining to his concerns over your stepmother." My fingers trembled slightly as I accepted the weighty bundle. Flipping it open, I scanned the pages. Reams of financial statements, phone records, even photos capturing Lana in compromising situations. As you can see, your father was quite thorough in documenting his findings. Mara allowed the faintest hint of admiration to color her tone. "However, much of this intelligence alone will be difficult to prosecute without corroborating evidence from other parties." I looked up sharply. "Are you saying Lana could still worm her way out of this?" "Potentially." Mara laced her fingers together atop the desk. "Which is why we must pursue a multi-pronged strategy. Legal proceedings, but also more personal venues of exposing the truth." A tiny smirk played across my lips as understanding dawned. "You mean going public and destroying her reputation beyond repair?" The barest hint of a nod. "Precisely. Draw her deceit into the light so utterly that no courtroom theatrics can obscure it." My gaze hardened to steel. "Do it. I want the whole book thrown at that conniving witch, financially, socially, all of it. I'll get you whatever information you need to leave her life in ashes." Mara's expression didn't flicker, but I could have sworn I saw a glint of approval in those steely eyes. "Very good, Miss Ellis. Then let's begin making preparations, shall we?" As I exited the office, I was acutely aware of the warpath stretching before me. Lana had waged her deception in the shadows, but by the time I was done, her wicked truth would be on display for the whole world to revile. The game was on. When I arrived home, Lana was lounging on the patio in that damned silk robe, sipping a glass of Chardonnay. She cast me a poisonous smile over the rim. "Why the grim look of determination, dear? Nothing unpleasant from the attorney I trust?" Digging my nails into my palms, I forced myself not to rise to the bait. "You'll see soon enough." With that, I brushed past her, heading inside to set my plans into motion. If the Viper thought she'd already won, she was sorely mistaken. I was just getting started. My first call was to Sam Jenkins, the one person I trusted wholeheartedly, my best friend since junior high. When she answered, I wasted no time launching into the sordid tale. "Oh my God, Bryn!" Even over the phone, her shock was palpable. "I can't believe Alex did that to you. And with your stepmother? Those depraved scum." I laughed darkly. "Oh, just wait until you hear the rest. This goes so much deeper." By the time I finished recounting Dad's letter and Lana's damning past, Sam was fuming. "That evil, manipulative witch. We have to take her down, Bryn. She can't be allowed to get away with what she's done to your family." Exactly. I exhaled slowly, appreciating the sense of ally I now had at my side. "That's why I need your help. We're going to expose Lana for the venomous snake she is, then make sure she can never slither back into a position to hurt anyone else." There was steely determination in Sam's tone. "Just say the word, B. I'm in all the way, whatever it takes." As I disconnected the call, lightning crackled outside, a tempest brewing to match the storm I was about to unleash. The sun was setting on Lana Winter's web of lies. The next few weeks were a dizzying blur of covert meetings, strategizing with Sam and Mara to meticulously construct our multi-pronged attack. Lana didn't suspect a thing as she swanned around the house, periodically shooting me smug looks that made my blood boil. If only she knew what was coming. The first phase began with an anonymous online expose that Sam had expertly crafted, laying out the lurid details of Lana's tawdry affair with my husband in cold, hard facts. The story spread like wildfire, scandalous screenshots circulating rapidly across social media. I'll never forget the look of shock on Lana's face when she finally saw the viral firestorm erupting around her. "What is this?" She gestured wildly at her laptop, face flushed with rage. "Some kind of sick prank?" I strolled over, feigning nonchalance as I scanned the screen. "Oh my, someone certainly did dig up some unsavory details about your personal life." I clicked my tongue in mock sympathy. "Not a good look, Lana. So much for keeping up that sugary facade. She rounded on me, eyes blazing like hellfire. "You did this?" I shrugged one shoulder lazily. "Can't control the internet, can you?" Allowing a small, satisfied smile to curve my lips, I turned and headed for the door. "But hey, look on the bright side. At least now everyone knows the real you." Her screams and curses followed me down the hallway, bringing a wicked gratification. That was just the opening salvo. The next phase unfolded in a rapid succession of haymakers. Carefully tailored leaks to the right sources, exposing Lana's shady business dealings and financial improprieties. Records of offshore bank accounts, incriminating call recordings, whistleblowers emerging from the shadows of her past, painting a damning portrait of greed and exploitation. Wave after wave of evidence battered her so-called good name, and with each fresh public humiliation, I could see the strain spreading across Alex's features. Poor sap, he'd believed Lana's con job too, letting himself get tangled up in her lies. Well, live by deception, die by deception, as they say. As the hammer continued to drop, the elite country club where Lana had hobnobbed with high society revoked her membership, effective immediately. Friendships fractured within days, former allies distancing themselves from the maelstrom of scandal now swirling around her. I savored every ignominious moment from a carefully calculated distance, emerging again only when the final crushing blow was prepared to strike. It was the night of the charity gala held annually by Lana's once-respected charitable foundation. an evening where she'd always taken great pains to present her saintly public visage. Well, that mask would shatter into a million pieces tonight. Sam and I positioned ourselves across the street from the grand ballroom entrance, dressed to the nines and clutching crystal flutes of champagne. At precisely 8 p.m., a towering billboard blazed to life on the adjacent building, emblazoned with a single phrase in garish red font: Lane Winters, A Legacy of Lies, the full uncovered story. Beneath it, a QR code linked to a viral data dump, all of Dad's compiled evidence, the financial records and whistleblower testimonies presented in one thorough, utterly damning package for the world to consume. Within minutes, camera flashes were popping in a frenzied strobe across the red carpet as guests arrived. Those who saw the blistering billboard gaped in shock, muttering in phones held aloft, spreading the QR code like a contagion. Finally, Lana appeared in the center of the spectacle, eyes bulging in outrage and disbelief, as the realization of her annihilated reputation sank in. For one shining moment, her masquerade crumbled completely, exposing the true, blackened soul beneath. Another slow smile crept across my lips as I sipped my champagne and watched the Empress suffer a very public, very deserved execution. The first phase of my vengeance was complete. Time to turn my attention to the legal battlefield that awaited, and leave Lana to drown in the ocean of her own deceptions. The days following the charity gala exposé were a blissful reprieve as Lana went into full damage control mode. The house was mercifully quiet. She and Alex holed up separately with their lawyers, no doubt scrambling for some Hail Mary to counter the mountain of evidence we detonated. Good luck with that. Predictably, the first incoming volley was Lana summoning me to the den with a curt, "We need to talk." I strolled in to find her perched like a coiled viper on the chaise, eyes glinting with a mixture of wounded fury and smug calculation. Clearly she fancied herself holding some trump card. "Well, I see you've had your fun with your little internet theatrics." Her lips twisted in a mocking sneer. "But now the real game begins, pet. Unless you want to spend the rest of your days drowning in litigation, you'll back down immediately." I raised an eyebrow coolly. "Is that so? And what leverage could you possibly have, Lana?" Quick as a cobra's strike, she seized a folder from the side table and flung it at me. "See for yourself, dear." I crouched to scoop up the scattered contents, bank statements, property records, all laying out mine and Alex's joint assets in exacting detail. "What is this?" "Your Achilles' heel." A lupine smile curved her lips as the trap sprung shut. "Everything you've attempted so far is circumstantial at best, but with one simple lawsuit, your darling husband and I can ensure you're left with nothing but the clothes on your back." A cold shudder of realization trickled down my spine as her ploy crystallized. Of course. Attack my financial foundation in tandem with the smear campaign. Bleed me dry through the legal system while simultaneously stripping me of credibility. Cunning little viper, I had to hand it to her. But if she thought unveiled threats would make me balk, she had sorely underestimated me. Straightening, I met her wolfish stare with an arctic one of my own. "You can posture and grandstand all you want, Lana. It won't make a damn bit of difference." I allowed a grim smile to tug the corner of my mouth. "I have the receipts, as they say. The money trails, the testimony, all of it. You're going down in flames one way or another." Her serpentine eyes narrowed dangerously. "We'll see about that, won't we?" With that parting shot still ringing in the air between us, I turned and marched from the room, the first tremors of the legal earthquake we were about to endure shuddering beneath my feet. Mara was waiting in her office a short while later when I swept through the door and took a seat across from her desk. "Let's go on the offensive," were the first words out of my mouth. A flicker of understanding passed behind her eyes as she rifled through a stack of documents. "Of course, we anticipated this maneuver when formulating strategy." She pushed a dossier across the desk towards me. "Here are the grounds we'll pursue. Alienation of affection to form the basis of your divorce proceedings against Mr. Hammond. Given the clear evidence of infidelity and marital misconduct on his part, we have more than sufficient legal footing." My finger traced the printed words, relief loosening the knot that had formed in my chest. Divorce the cheating bastard, of course. Step 1. And for the vindictive viper? I scooped up the next section of the file detailing counts of fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. Mara allowed the ghost of a grim smile. I took the liberty of reaching out to a few interested parties regarding your stepmother's activities. She slid a document across the desk. The IRS, SEC, you name it. By the time we're through, Lana Winter's tangled financial web will be laid bare, along with the full extent of her years-long con. Brilliant, I breathed, already envisioning her highfalutin lifestyle crumbling away to nothing but 4 drab prison walls. We moved swiftly and decisively, on all fronts. Mara's voice carried a lethal edge, a lioness scenting blood. Lana fancies herself a master manipulator, exploiting the system to her benefit. Well, now she'll learn the true power of that very system when wielded against her. A feral smile curved my lips as the first papers were drawn up, the battle fully joined. Game on, Lana. Don't bother hiring extra security. There's nowhere left for you to hide. The rules of engagement were set, and I wouldn't rest until I'd claimed victory through sheer overwhelming force. By the time this was over, that woman's life would be in ashes at my feet. The next several months were a dizzying cyclone of legal filings, deposition hearings, and mounting media frenzies as the twin proceedings against Lana and Alex accelerated. Mara was an indomitable force, calmly dismantling every underhanded tactic and angle of attack their lawyers attempted. I lost count of how many times I was grilled under oath, forced to recount in granular detail the undoing of my marriage. Each new dissolution hearing was akin to lancing a fresh wound, raw anger and humiliation burning in my throat. But I kept my composure, didn't dare let Lana or that sniveling weasel Alex see me flinch, no matter how many times Alex's lawyer tried to impugn my character or cast aspersions about my motives. Let them sling mud, I thought coldly. Won't change the truth staring them in the face. Speaking of which, Lana's legal battle was rapidly devolving into a masterclass of denial and misdirection. Her lawyers deployed every trick in the book to cast doubt on the mountain of incriminating evidence we'd amassed. Forged documents, they claimed, falsified testimony from paid actors, a coordinated campaign of lies by a bitter ex-wife desperately clinging to her material lifestyle. I had to smother laughter as I watched their clown show unfold in utter seriousness before the bench. Did Lana really think those third-rate theatrics would hold up against the towering edifice of proof we'd constructed? Mara shredded each absurd claim to bits with almost bored efficiency. Forensic records, rock-solid witness accounts, every damning data point laid out with the ruthless precision of a scalpel. And through it all, I took petty satisfaction in watching Lana's glaring weakness on the stand, as her artfully composed facade increasingly dissolved into flop sweat and desperate stammering. For once, the master manipulator had no script to fall back on, no lies to distort the corrosive truth burning her alive in that courtroom. The weeks ticked by with remorseless efficiency as the dual cases built to an inexorable climax. Lana's blustering faltered, her hired guns of lawyers slowly resigning themselves to the futility of their straits. At last, the day of reckoning dawned, a final trial date to decide both my divorce and the civil case against my shattered stepmother. I dressed simply but sharply, fixing my hair into a tight chignon as I steeled myself for the fight still to come. Alex and Lana were already seated at the defendant's table when I strode into the courtroom, heads bent in whispered conference with their haggard legal teams. They turned as one in my direction, twin expressions of loathing and fear. For the first time, I allowed myself a thin, predatory smile. They should be afraid of the all-consuming justice I was about to unleash. The proceedings passed in a whirlwind of procedural formalities, evidence rehashed, and accounts culminating to their inevitable apex. When the jury finally returned with their verdict, a deafening hush fell over the gallery. On the charge of felony embezzlement, how do you find? The forewoman stood, shoulders squared. We, the jury, find the defendant Lana Winters guilty. An electric shock seemed to judder through the courtroom. I could have sworn I heard the sharp crack of Lana's composure shattering in that instant as the words detonated in her ears. Tears began leaking from her eyes as the judge continued the stony pronouncement. Furthermore, the court finds sufficient grounds for civil tort based on alienation of affection in the matter of Bryn Ellis versus Alex Hammond. Divorce proceedings will commence immediately. A keening wail tore from Lana's throat as the full weight of loss crashed down upon her. Reputation, riches, the gilded facade of her life, all of it sledgehammered into rubble. And there, in the burning pyre of her ruination, the chains of bitterness that had shackled my soul for so long finally fell away in sublime release. Over. It was finally, utterly over. I took one last look at the shuddering, broken thing crumpled in the defendant's chair. The beast that had nearly destroyed me now caged at last. Not a shred of pity, mercy, or remorse remained between us. Only the karmic scales bearing down with implacable purgative force. As the bailiffs moved to take them away, Lana looked up at me with reddened, hateful eyes. But the iron curtain of my stare didn't waver until her disgrace finally dissolved behind the towering barricades of institutional gray. In the end, courage and truth had prevailed over calculation and venom, and although the road here had been brutal, my peace was finally restored. The rest would pass like a fever dream blasted away on the cleansing wind of justice served. I was free, reborn from the ashes of betrayal into someone tempered, someone stronger than I'd ever imagined. As I exited the courthouse and strode into the brilliant daylight, the specter of the past crumbling like ashes away, I inhaled the crisp air of my new life, untethered, inviolable, and fueled by deepest resilience. My vengeance was complete, but my true victory had only just begun. In the days and weeks following the court verdicts, an eerie silence descended upon my life. The seething crusade that had fueled my every waking breath abruptly faded, leaving a void I didn't quite know how to fill. Gone were the whispered strategizing sessions with Mara, the burning need to scour legal documents for any advantage over Lana's wicked machinations. Even taking Sam's calls, those pillars of support and levity as we dismantled my traitorous adversaries, started to feel like echoes of a life no longer mine. The cathartic release of justice served should have ushered in a tidal wave of closure, of inner peace regained. So why did I feel so unmoored? Adrift in the vacuum of my own victory? Perhaps it was the sudden quiet allowing darker reflections to encroach, looming specters of doubt creeping in from the shadows of my mind. What if I went too far in my crusade for vengeance? Sure, Lana and Alex had been snakes, betraying me in unforgivable ways, but the scorched earth demolition of their lives, the relentless and frankly gleeful unraveling of Lana's influence, resources, and very identity, had that crossed some moral event horizon? I tried to shove the thought aside, to revel in my hard-won vindication. But there was no denying the flashes of my own ruthlessness that kept surfacing, unbidden. The cold, unflinching determination to lay waste to anyone and anything standing in my path. Mara's words echoed with disquieting clarity. Lana fancies herself a master manipulator, exploiting the system to her benefit. Well, now she'll learn the true power of that very system when wielded against her. Had I simply become the reverse side of that very same coin? The doubts gnawed and festered, driving me late one night to the very place where this nightmare had begun. My stately home in the suburbs sat hauntingly silent under the pale moonlight. I let myself in with the spare key, wandering from room to empty room like a restless specter. So many memories echoed from every corner, both beautiful and terrible, all now cast in the cold, harsh light of irredeemable deceit. The kitchen, garish and obscene. The den, awash in Dad's mournful admonitions. The bedroom, a blighted sanctuary. By the time I reached the living room fireplace, huddled on the hearth in the darkness, bone-deep weariness threatened to overwhelm me. Who was I now in the ashes of this harrowing ordeal? Some hardened, embittered mercenary of my own vengeance, or a tenacious survivor determined to wrest back her dignity from the jaws of destruction? My gaze drifted over the mantel, lingering on the solitary framed photo, a happier time when the future seemed bright before the first hairline cracks appeared in the facade. I brushed the glass with my fingertips, tears stinging my eyes. How had it all gone so wrong? When did the downward spiral pick up that inexorable momentum towards mutually assured ruination? A soft sound made me stiffen, whirling to find the intruder, only to freeze as Sam padded into the pool of dim light. "Bryn?" She spoke softly, eyes filled with gentle concern. "I got your message. You said you needed." Her voice trailed off as I let the tightly wound mask slip, hot tears spilling in silent streams down my cheeks. It was too much. the weight of this whole shattered saga. I craved the absolution that had always seemed so clear before. But no platitudes came as Sam gathered me in her arms, simply holding on as the anguish of the last several months poured out in ragged sobs. For the first time since uncovering the betrayal, I allowed myself to shatter completely, burying my face in her shoulder as the foundations cracked open and the flood washed over. In that moment of abject brokenness, the hardened shell of victorious Bryn finally disintegrated, leaving only the raw, wounded soul desperate to find its way back towards the light. Perhaps this keening release would prove the catharsis I'd been seeking all along. The purging of toxic rage to make way for rebirth, rising up from the scorched earth left in vengeance's wake. Only time would tell. For now, I simply surrendered to the corrosive waves crashing over me, allowing the last remnants of my former life to dissolve into the ether. My road to healing stretched before me, arduous yet infinitely promising for what lay at its end, inner peace at last reclaimed. As Sam held vigil over my tear-streaked epiphany, the bitter taste of retribution gradually gave way to the promise of something far sweeter on the horizon, a true chance to begin anew. In the weeks following my cathartic breakdown at the old house, a profound shift took hold within me. It started small, rediscovering simple joys like morning coffee on the patio or evening walks around the neighborhood, mundane routines that had been crushed under the weight of trauma and obsession. Gradually, I felt the icy grip of bitterness and anger loosening its hold over my heart, replaced by a dawning sense of freedom and infinite possibility stretching out before me. When the final divorce paperwork arrived with a stark finality, I simply filed it away without fanfare. The severing of that wretched bond with Alex stirred none of the old vengeful urges, only a vaguely bittersweet feeling. Rather than dwell on the death of what was, all my energy channeled towards dreaming of what could be. It all culminated one bright spring morning over brunch with Sam as I announced my decision. "I'm selling the house." She paused, fork laden with Belgian waffle hovering midair. "You are?" "Whoa, that's huge, B." A small smile played over her lips as understanding blossomed. "Symbolic fresh start and all that?" I nodded, unable to contain my own widening grin. "Exactly. That place holds too many toxic memories, like a darkened void I keep getting inextricably pulled back into." I took a deep breath, savoring the rising sense of lightness in my chest. It's time to let go fully and move forward, you know? Sam reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "I'm proud of you for taking that leap," she said simply, eyes shining. We'd come such an unimaginably long way since those early, anguished days following the betrayal's discovery. From there, it was a whirlwind of action, hiring an elite realtor, sorting through our old life's worth of possessions, itemizing what to take and what to discard. With each box taped up, an item crossed off the list, I felt layers of my former self being gently shed and set aside. Finally, the big day arrived with the ringing of the doorbell, a couple straight off the real estate marketing brochure. Young, impeccably dressed, beaming at the prospect of their new dream home as I greeted them with the keys. I led them through the stately foyer towards the living area, though my strides gradually slowed as a clutch of bittersweet memories resurfaced. Flashes of holidays spent with Dad, laughter ringing through the space, recollections of smiling, promising days when this rambling manor had radiated warmth and joy, before the rot had set in and poisoned it all from within. The wife seemed to sense my pensive mood as she laid a gentle hand on my arm. "You've made so many wonderful memories here, I can tell." She gave a reassuring smile. "But I promise we'll fill this place with brand new joys of our own." I blinked, momentarily caught off guard by her perceptiveness, before nodding slowly. "I hope you do." With that, I pressed the keys into her palm and strode out onto the front path one final time. Pausing to drink in the elegant facade for the last time, now divested of its sordid significance. This chapter was officially closed, soon to be replaced by happier days in the making. My journey continued ever onward and upward. Over the next few months, the windfall from the profitable sale, combined with my meager inheritance and court settlement, allowed me to slowly rebuild my life through more positive, rewarding outlets. I rededicated myself to my marketing career with a vengeance, rising swiftly through the ranks and exploring new entrepreneurial opportunities. But even more fulfilling were the passion projects, like spearheading a nonprofit for women affected by abuse and financial dissolution. Each micro act of service, of selfless giving back, was like a healing balm applied against the wounds of my former trauma. Where anger and hatred had once festered, compassion and optimism now blossomed in their place. And when a potential new romantic connection gradually materialized, I felt unshakably self-assured in walking that path, buoyed by the rediscovered strength of my convictions. I was Bryn Ellis, bold survivor reborn, master of my own destiny, free from the shackles of others' deceptions. The rising dawn of a new lifetime of possibilities stretched gloriously ahead in reverent silence. No further words were required for the shining truth that filled my soul on this day. I had confronted the darkest nights. I had waged the battles that defined me. And from the searing crucible of anguish, I emerged incandescent, inviolable, and infinitely wiser. My vengeance was complete. But more importantly, my true victory had only just begun.